Charlie Kirk, life, career, and profile. He was born on October 14, 1993, and raised in suburban Illinois. In his teen years, little suggested that he would become a central figure in American politics. By his early 20s, however, he was rapidly building influence on college campuses across the country. At just 18, Kirk co-founded Turning Point USA alongside entrepreneur Bill Montgomery. While Montgomery provided seed funding and initial mentorship, Kirk quickly became the public face, refining his reputation as a relentless organizer, fundraiser, and combative debater. Under his leadership, Turning Point expanded into a national network, later branching into Turning Point Action, which focused directly on electioneering efforts. His position on the Council for National Policy further signaled deep integration within conservative strategy circles. By the mid-2020s, Kirk's media reach rivaled veteran commentators. His flagship radio program, The Charlie Kirk Show, reached hundreds of thousands of daily listeners, and he added books, speaking tours, and digital platforms to his growing influence. His proximity to Donald Trump elevated him further, earning him advisory appointments and cementing his dual identity as activist and presidential confidant. But Kirk's ascent was inseparable from intense controversy. Critics described him as polarizing and extreme, pointing to his stances on issues ranging from gun rights and abortion to immigration and religion. Supporters, however, viewed him as an unapologetic truth-teller and a necessary counterweight to progressive narratives. Privately, he emphasized family life, marrying Erica France in 2021 and becoming a father soon after. This contrast between family-oriented imagery and a fiery political persona heightened his symbolic status, admired by followers, condemned by detractors, and impossible to ignore by either. The assassination event. On September 10, 2025 at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah was prepared for a high-profile stop on Turning Point USA's American Comeback Tour. More than 3,000 attendees gathered outdoors, many recording or live streaming as Kirk debated students on stage. Shortly after noon, with tension high during an exchange over gun violence, a single shot rang out. Kirk collapsed on stage, struck in the neck. Panic swept through the crowd as security rushed to shield him and evacuations began across the campus. He was transported quickly to Timpanogos Regional Hospital, but by evening he was pronounced dead. The event was immediately labeled by officials and media as a political assassination, one carried out in full view of cameras and broadcast across digital platforms. The university went into lockdown. Classes were canceled and alarms reverberated through campus buildings. The shockwave spread far beyond Utah. Within hours, headlines spread worldwide, framing the killing as a pivotal moment of political violence in modern America. The suspect, Tyler Robinson. Authorities identified the suspect within a day. Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old from Utah, once seen as a promising academic talent, graduating high school with a 4.0 GPA and owning a full scholarship. Robinson had dropped out of university after only one semester. Friends later recalled a period of increasing isolation, coupled with a growing fixation on political polarization. Family members described his hostility toward Kirk as particularly sharp, with Robinson labeling him full of hate. Surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts tied him directly to the shooting. Investigators detailed his calculated preparations, a vehicle parked nearby, changes of clothing for disguise, and a rooftop vantage point for the attack. His eventual surrender did not come through direct police confrontation, but through family intervention. Guided by his father and a trusted youth pastor, Robinson abandoned plans to end his own life and agreed to face arrest. Prosecutors charged him with aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, and multiple firearm offenses. Utah's governor summarized the case as chilling, emphasizing how quickly Robinson had shifted from an engaged student to a radicalized actor. It raised urgent questions about how rapidly young individuals can fall into violent extremism. Motive and indicators. The weapon left behind spoke volumes. Investigators recovered a Mauser .3006 rifle fitted with a scope, abandoned in nearby woods and wrapped in a towel. Alongside it were shell casings etched with phrases, a blend of anti-fascist slogans, internet memes, and deliberately cryptic humor. To law enforcement, this mixture symbolized more than personal anger. Analysts described it as an in-group communication, crafted not simply to mark the crime but to broadcast allegiance to online communities where irony, humor, and radical politics overlap. Digital records reinforced the point. Robinson's Discord logs revealed repeated references to rifles, engraved ammunition, and symbolic gestures intended to link his act to wider internet subcultures. Experts noted echoes of earlier cases where perpetrators blurred the line between offline violence and online propaganda. Psychological assessments categorized it as domestic terrorism. The act carried both a direct and an indirect goal: to silence one individual at the height of his influence, and to broadcast a message that might inspire others. Widespread reactions and political fallout. The shock following Charlie Kirk's assassination was immediate and global. Within hours, the news dominated headlines and social feeds. Messages of condemnation arrived not just from partisan figures but across the political spectrum. Former U.S. presidents, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, all issued statements of grief and warning. International leaders, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and heads of state across Europe, described the attack as a dark moment for democratic societies. In the United States, the most powerful responses came from those closest to Kirk and his movement. Donald Trump called him legendary, pledged to attend the funeral, and ordered flags lowered to half-mast. He later announced that Kirk would receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. Charlie Kirk, his widow, spoke with equal force. In her first remarks, she vowed that Turning Point USA would not fade, promising to expand its tours, student chapters, and media output in her husband's honor. Utah's governor, Spencer Cox, labeled the killing a political assassination and pressed for the death penalty against the suspect. Yet he also urged young people to reject violence and seek common ground, calling the moment a national watershed. Other responses added to the sense of national rupture. Vice President J.D. Vance escorted Kirk's casket aboard Air Force Two. The defense secretary ordered an inquiry after reports of military personnel celebrating the death online. Even within the Secret Service, disciplinary actions followed inflammatory social posts. The broader concerns were unmistakable. How safe were open-air political events? Could extremist violence derail public participation entirely? On university campuses and city squares, vigils appeared. Even in critical spaces like Carnegie Mellon, student memorials highlighted the gravity of the event. Kirk's assassination, within days, had become more than a tragedy. It was a direct symbol of volatility in American political culture. Investigation and law enforcement response. The law enforcement response was among the largest domestic operations since the Boston Marathon bombing. The FBI assumed command, coordinating with Utah authorities. In the first 48 hours, tens of thousands of digital leads poured in, from live streams, phone recordings, and eyewitness submissions. Nearly 200 individuals were interviewed. Investigators described the attack as deliberate and meticulous: a rooftop vantage point, a scoped rifle, and bullets engraved with inflammatory slogans. The FBI launched an online evidence portal for civilians, offering a $100,000 reward for critical information. FBI Director Kash Patel personally toured the scene, calling the inquiry historic in speed and scope. He emphasized both the symbolic and practical weight of the case, telling reporters, "The country is watching. Our responsibility is not only to the Kirk family but to the defense of democratic life itself." Despite the rapid mobilization, officials noted that the investigation remained in its early stages. This cautious language only intensified speculation online, where theories and unverified claims spread faster than official updates could keep pace. Charlie Kirk's legacy and the future of the movement. Almost immediately, allies and analysts alike began to redefine Charlie Kirk's place in history. To supporters, he was no longer only an activist, he was a martyr. Turning Point USA leaders framed his death as a rallying cry. His voice will never be silenced. Charlie Kirk delivered the movement's most pointed vow, insisting that tours, broadcasts, and chapters would expand with renewed urgency. In Washington, President Trump confirmed that Kirk would be honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Congressional Republicans introduced legislation to award him the Congressional Gold Medal. The short-term impact was measurable. Donations to Turning Point surged, and supporters across the country held vigils and rallies, often describing his death as an inflection point for the young conservative movement. Analysts, however, raised concerns about a martyr effect, warning that polarization could intensify as his memory became simultaneously a banner for one side and a target for the other. Regardless of political interpretation, Kirk's legacy shifted quickly from individual advocate to enduring symbol, one destined to shape conservative activism for years to come. Broader societal implications. As the initial shock receded, larger questions took hold. The assassination intersected with several dangerous trends already shaping American life. The U.S. Secret Service testified to Congress that politically motivated threats and attacks had risen sharply in recent years. Digital platforms magnified the impact. Within hours of the shooting, graphic recordings circulated on every major network: TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Telegram. Millions watched and re-watched the footage, often reframed or remixed into memes that stripped events of their gravity. Alongside virality, misinformation accelerated. Doctored images of the suspect spread globally before officials confirmed his identity. False claims about his affiliations trended widely, while foreign disinformation networks amplified confusion. Utah's governor, Spencer Cox, criticized social media corporations directly, calling them a cancer on society for enabling rapid distortion of public understanding. The implications reached beyond security. If political speech and debate carried the risk of lethal violence, if attacks could be instantly commodified as online spectacle, and if false narrative could outpace facts by hours or days, then public confidence itself came under threat. In this sense, the killing of Charlie Kirk became more than the targeting of a public figure. It was a vivid signal of fragility in democratic culture, a reminder that the intersection of violence, politics, and the digital sphere now poses a profound challenge not only to safety but to the very trust on which civic life depends.